don't feel like we have a racial problem. There is no racial problem in our community. I don't feel that way. I don't feel like we have a racial problem. There is no racial problem in our community. I don't feel
racial discrimination in my life. It has come from people of diverse races. I don't think racism is limited to one race, actually.
Greetings. This is Dr. Rob, and I briefly want to touch on this recent shooting in Jacksonville that happened over the weekend, where you had another white supremacist brutally kill 3 black people in cold blood. And what I find ironic is how the Republicans and conservatives have reacted to this, where they try to downplay this and use the common thing of the lone one bad apple, one lone wolf type of theory. And now some of me talking about mental health.
Individual who happened to be white decided to commit a heinous act by killing and shooting 3 black people at a Dollar General. Now, clearly this person is an evil person. He's a bad person. But the mainstream media wants to focus more on this aspect of the gun, okay, and racism.
Several manifestos, one to his parents, one to the media, and one to federal agents. Portions of these manifestos detail the shooter's disgusting ideology of hate. Plainly put, this shooting was racially motivated, and he hated black people. He wanted to kill niggers. That's the one and only time I'll use that word.
Now, I wanted to do a brief reaction in terms of how this guy tries to downplay the racial components, even though the chief of police acknowledged that this was racially motivated. It falls under the guidelines of a hate crime. And also, this new Republican candidate, Vivek Ramsady, I apologize if I mispronounce his name, trying to go on a speaking tour talking about that this was not a big deal and just an isolated incident, and talking about mental health, which is another game that they're playing.
I don't feel like we have a racial problem. There is no racial problem in our community. I don't feel that way. What they wanted him to come out here and say that, oh, well, white supremacy is such a big problem in this country, and you need to talk about racism more because black people are victims of being hunted down every day by the white man, and we get sick and tired of this. We need laws, we need hate crime bill, we need anti-lynching bills. That's what's gonna stop this, right? That's what they wanted him to say.
These operatives continue to push this narrative like this is not an issue, but the simple question I ask is, when was the last time you heard about a black person walking up into an area and engaging in a mass shooting of white folks? By no means am I encouraging this or condoning this. I'm just simply saying that these are things that simply don't happen, but it happens on multiple occasions. You document times when a white person has assaulted or engaged in mass shooting. You had the situation in Buffalo in May of 2022. You had the Dylan Roof situation, and now we have this recent incident in Jacksonville. Despite these patterns, you have conservative commentators, even some of them black, trying to downplay the existence of racism in this country and the significance of white supremacy, even though there's very signs of all of these things.
The greatest racism I have experienced, and I have experienced racism, comes from the modern left at a scale unimaginable.
Now, I'll leave my final comments about this Republican candidate, presidential candidate, Vivek Ramaswamy, who had quite a few controversies last week when he said that, well, first he compared Ayanna Pressley with the Ku Klux Klan Grand Wizard, suggesting that the real racism in the United States came from members of the left. And he also mentioned that racism in America is manufactured in a way that it creates more racism in this country, which is absurd. He wants to be following on the tradition of other Republicans of Indian descent, such as Nikki Haley and Bobby Jindal in South Carolina. But he wants to take it a step higher in denying the existence of racism. So I'm not going to get too far in depth in terms of his deranged illusions. And he said this before the incident in Jacksonville. And now he's trying to suggest that this was another mental health issue, which I noticed that several of these talking heads, Republicans, are trying to suggest that we don't have a gun problem, we don't have a racism problem, we have a mental health problem. It's funny how all these mental health individuals all seem to be neo-Nazis and Trump supporters. So this is just another pattern. But on that note, he's just another one going along, just trying to continue this pattern of Republican atrocities and denying the obvious.